And we're rolling. Hello, fellow fairies. It's She the Writer here again. Sorry I didn't have a video yesterday. Things have been kind of crazy. I have had to leave my day job for a lot of reasons. Had a family emergency, got another job. Things have been kind of crazy, but everything's starting to flatline a little bit, which is good. Today I am flipping through a composition notebook that I want to say I got at Target. I don't remember. It's pretty old, but it's one of the Studio C compositions. They're pretty durable as far as compositions go. And I used this one mostly to write reviews of short stories I read in literary journals because I couldn't get published for a while, and people kept saying you've got to read literary journals to know what they want. And mostly it was a scramble of random things. Most literary journals are garbage. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. Most of them are pretty crummy, and most short stories are pretty crummy these days. I encounter a good one here and there, but they're mostly pretty crummy. I really like the tape on this because you can't tell from here, but it's actually kind of a navy blue, which I thought was pretty distinctive. Let's get to it. Okay, so this was some random letters and writing to my characters. I also did some research in here for like a mini thesis I had in my first college. I was researching kidnappings in the United States. So I did this massive research, it's actually a pretty good story, on kidnappings in the United States, and I read entire books cover to cover and learn about, different cases of ransom and the different types of kidnapping, every survivor of kidnapping in the United States, watched all their interviews. This was back when the internet was a little bit smaller. Like a typical theory, did that too. And then when I was applying to art school, I had some BFA letters and stuff that I was writing. And then here are my reviews for short stories. Mostly garbage. They were mostly terrible. But I liked writing down my thoughts about them because it gave me another excuse to write. Wow. Okay. So I had my statement of purpose for art school too, it appears. I wrote with my left hand a lot just because my right hand started hurting and I was bored in class. I know my roommates had a problem with it. I don't know why, but I guess a friend of a friend of a friend saw me do it, and I don't know, people were talking about me when I was in public university. There were rumors going around, and I had no idea that any of this was happening. My head was in my writing. That is all I was doing. I just had no idea, and people had their eyes on me. That tends to happen to me in different environments. It's very uncomfortable. I don't like being under scrutiny. But what do you know? Oh, back to my story about the kidnapping research. So I researched all this stuff because we were allowed to research anything we want and then write like a paper about it. So I did a 10-page paper or 5-page paper, and I did this long presentation, and I failed. I got an F on it because it wasn't what she wanted. They wanted like a 5-page paper, and I literally gave her some kind of a TED talk. So I went through the history of all American kidnappings, and I talked about Stockholm Syndrome and kidnappings in fiction, and I had it all memorized. It was a memorized little talk that I gave. My sources, hey Katura, what's up? So my sources for the paper were, like, they were in my paper. Like, I sent them to her, but I didn't say them because then it wouldn't have been a good speech. So I didn't say I got this research from this link and blah blah blah. Like, I just gave them my passion, basically. I had spent like a few years researching kidnappings. I knew you could not name a kidnapping in America, in American history, that I didn't know about. Now it's different because there's more press coverage and there's the internet and everything. But I knew about every single one. Got a list back here too. And I just found books about the history of kidnapping and ransoms, and I read them straight. Like, I read them cover to cover. Anyway, so I failed it. But when I was giving my talk, my teacher was being observed by a senior professor. And, oh, hello, person. One old subscribers. Interesting. Cool, country girl. Thanks for adding to the conversation. So, anywho, this senior professor observed my professor, and so she saw me giving the talk, and she was very impressed. And she ended up, I don't know when this was exactly, but she recommended me for this graduate course, this master class with a visiting author. And this sounds arrogant, but it's really very important because there's a lot of knockbacks in writing. There's like a lot of knockbacks. And I mean, Cope syndrome, some of you know about Cope syndrome. I've been writing it it took a decade to write it. I'm writing a TV show based on the story now. But it got about about 70 rejections. No one wanted it. It was too strange. So there's a lot of knockbacks, and I contextualize this story with that because that's important. So that you know I'm not saying this to be arrogant, but it was important. This visiting author had this master class, and I was a freshman, and it was for grad students. But I got a recommendation anonymously, and I got in. So I attended, and I submitted my somewhat early draft of Cope syndrome, the first chapter of Cope syndrome. And then when I went to meet with him about it, he said that it was immaculate. There was like one error that I had with commas, that I used this error consistently and not intentionally, and that was the only other thing I had to fix. And he said it was flawless. He said there's nothing I can do to improve this work. And he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I don't know, I needed a place to live. I didn't really want to go to college because I was a YouTuber and I really liked it. And I missed it a lot. And he said that I should either quit school and go back to YouTubing, or I should go to art school. And a lot of you know how that ended. But he said that Cope syndrome was immaculate. He said it was written perfectly. He said this is an unusual book. It's really strange. It's going to be hard to publish. But your writing is flawless as far as characterization and that sort of thing goes. And I needed to hear that because Cope syndrome has since been rejected 70 times. And I've been told that it's great, but doesn't matter that it's great because it's unusual. And I'm a new author, so fat load of good, it's going to do me to have great writing. Doesn't matter because if you have a book that's hard to market and you're a new author, nobody wants it. And that's what led me to self-publishing now, which is what I'm doing now for Paint and hopefully Cope syndrome as well. The only reason I'm not self-publishing Cope syndrome first is really simple. It's important to me. It took me 10 years to write. And if I'm publishing it myself, I'm likely to maybe make some mistakes, and I don't have a big audience yet. And I just want to get some of my mistakes out of the way with a book that's a lot more marketable. And that's not to say that Paint isn't good. I actually love Paint. It's a fantastic book. But because it's shorter, it's easier to copy edit on my own. I have to sneeze, but I can't. So because it's easier to edit on my own because of the length, and it's just a little more marketable. Cope syndrome is very unusual, and Paint is not quite as unusual, and that's why I'm starting with it. And I'm really excited about it. I just got my proofread back from Chimera Editing Services. They did a fantastic job. You should definitely check them out. I don't remember their link, but it's Chimera Editing Services, CH. I think it's like that, like a chimera, you know. So that's the stories that I get from this notebook. I remember my kidnapping presentation that I failed at because it had too much personality, and then it led me to that master class. I think that was the order of things. In any case, I know that professor recommended me for the master class. And he said that Cope syndrome was flawless. And this is before the novel was done. I just sent him the beginning. And this was an earlier draft several years ago. And that was one of the things that led me to art school too, because everyone was like, what are you doing here? Get out of here. Why are you in college? What's your goal with college? Do you want to teach? And I said, no, not in an academic setting. I love teaching, but not as a, not for an institution. And it was really just a matter of needing somewhere to live and getting scholarship, and it was just a variety of things. And curiosity. I was a little bit, slightly curious about college, not terribly curious, to be honest. But and then I got into art school, and I mean, that story is elsewhere on my channel. You can go find it and see how and why I went to art school. But those are the stories that come to mind. I hope that's alright. I know this isn't the most organized structure, but the journals are real. Everything starts with writing. It starts in the notebooks. And the things that I know and the things that I've learned, you know, come to mind when I look at them. So, does someone have a question about fiction or persistence, or how in the world I got 70 rejections in 3 months for something that took 10 years? I'm a little bit better. If it's not clear, if it's not obvious, I was a little bit grouchy about getting that many rejections, because I just felt like if I could pitch these agents in person, I might have a shot, but I am in the Midwest after all, so it wasn't all bad. Sometimes I think it's really good because I just care about Cope syndrome tremendously, and self-publishing it would be great. Oh, I see it. There you are, Katura. Yeah, for sure. Ask away. I don't know. I mean, I'll do my best, like if I can answer, and you know, whatever I can do. These are great pens. Are these the Tombos? Yeah, Tombow markers. Got this in art school when I had my discount. It's one of the things I really miss about being an art student. You get like a discount on basically journaling supplies, writing supplies, all kinds of stuff. Okay. Try to close this while we're waiting on a question. There we go. Ooh. Oh, sweet mama, this is a good question. How do you get good feedback if everyone says it's great, like they don't want to hurt your feelings? Damn, that is a good question, girl. That's a great question. All right, let's get the show on the road here. How do you get good feedback? So, here's the thing. First things first. If someone just says, it's good, that's the worst thing, right? We all know that feeling. And that's not necessarily not genuine. It might just be that they don't know what to say. I'm going to start with the meanest part of the answer. This is the harshest part, and I'm going to start here because it's real. Gosh, I wish I had some makeup on because I don't want to turn this on my face, but I feel like I need to. Okay, how do you get good feedback? This is really mean, but I'm going to tell you this because it's the truth and it's happened to me many times. A lot of times when people just say something is good, it's because they're lying. They didn't read it. They're lying. I know that sounds really, really mean. And that could be just not the case at all, but I'm just going to throw that at you first thing so that you're aware that that happens. People are remarkably lazy. But if they did just say it's good and you didn't get good feedback, writing groups are a great way to fix this, but I also think that they can be a little bit overrated. In a writing group, you'll also encounter people who are the exact opposite. Yeah, you know. So there are a lot of people who want to prove that they're smart. And so they'll give you harsher feedback to prove that they're really incisive readers, right? So those are the kinds of people that are probably the least useful. When someone just says it's good, as upsetting as this sounds, you can at least take something from that, which is that it's not blowing them away, And it's not bad. It's coherent. And that's super important. And that was a huge difficulty for me. Got kicked out because your stuff is too weird. Winkety wink. I see a crying face, but that's a winkety wink. I'm the same. Same thing here, girl. Same thing. Well, I had lots of writing groups. Now they're separated more based on genre. But, you know, where was I with this? So if someone just says it's good, either they didn't really read it, they didn't fully understand it, or they did understand it. And maybe it's not blowing them away, but they understood it, which is good because coherence is important. And you can write something weird, very bizarre, and still be coherent. The way to do that is just fulfill your promises, like I said before. If you're writing a stream of consciousness or otherwise really unusual, if you're doing something like House of Leaves style or something like that, that's fine. You just got to make it clear that, like, oh, my writing is going in this direction. It's really crazy. It's really weird. And then people will sort of accept it. Getting good feedback. So there are services online. I rarely use those. I'm trying to remember the links. This is a good question. I might chew on this for later so I can give you links or something in a planned video. But I'd say for now, if writing groups aren't working for you, you can try something online. Or you can remember that feedback on work in progress is overrated. The whole, like, this whole thing about getting feedback on your writing, like workshopping and stuff, I think comes from the fact that there are more people who want to be writers now, and so they want to fit it into this, like, practice, right? That this is how you practice your craft, and that is essential. I mean, I did hundreds of workshops. So I'm saying this as someone who's done a lot of workshopping in a lot of different ways. Anonymous workshops have worked best for me because no one knows who wrote what, and you know, those have worked best for me. So you could try that. But you don't always need it. Like, sometimes if you're trying to find your voice, it's really important to do something again and again and again before you get feedback. You don't have to have people read everything you write. Does that ever make you paranoid about people stealing your stuff? Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, better story. Let's table that because, ooh, I'm going to write all this stuff down. These are great questions. Because I have a story about that. My work has been stolen before. I'm just going to write this down so I remember. So maybe I can get you some links for getting feedback. But if people are reading your work and saying it's good, you know, that's better than nothing. I can't really tell you how to get a lot of feedback. I can tell you how to use it. First thing is, know who the feedback is coming from. Hey, welcome. We're answering questions about writing and what to do with writing feedback. Know who it's coming from. And know what's useful. So when you get feedback, some of it's useful, some of it's not. The stuff that you disagree with will very often be what is most useful. So don't just think that because someone's giving you feedback that they're right. Usually they're wrong. What they're just telling you, they don't know how to solve the problem. They don't have the how. You have the how. You're the writer. You're the one with the skill. You're the one who knows the how. They don't have the how. They have the what. When people complain about your writing and you disagree with them, you have to understand that usually what they are complaining about is correct. Usually, it's correct. It may not be correct for the reasons they think. This is true in filmmaking as well. So if they think there's a problem with the character, it may not be that there's something wrong with the character, but if they're pointing at something and they tell you, you need to change your dialogue, don't listen to their how. You need to disregard that. They don't know whether you need to change your dialogue because they are not the craftsman. They do not know. But if they are experiencing, you have to step back objectively and see they are experiencing a problem with the character. So that means that there's something you have to fix with the character. But if they tell you to fix the dialogue, that's probably wrong. So listen to the what. Don't listen to the how. The how belongs to the writer. Always. This has almost always been the case. Very rarely do I get feedback where I think that the method of fixing it is correct. So that would be the first thing. To as far as what to do with the feedback. Getting it is a little trickier. I'm sorry I can't give you a super substantial answer on that. but know where they're coming from and realize that it's what they are saying that is useful to you, not how they are saying it. Don't take suggestions for what to do with the writing, just assess the response. It's the psychology of the response that's going to give you the most information. That is actually, I'm glad that I finally thought of that. That's been the most useful tool for me, by far. I know that's not like a total direct answer, so I'll think more about that. But as far as getting your work stolen, yeah, that freaks me out all the time. That's why I don't use the online stuff. I also copyright my work pretty aggressively. And just so you know, pro tip, when you email something to yourself, that is legally admissible. So it's not an official, it's not the most protected copyright in terms of protecting a particular expression of the work. But if you email yourself a piece of work with a date stamp, that is proof that you had it at the time, at the very least. Or if you sent it to somebody, anything in emails can be legally admissible. So that's something that, that's a pro tip for writers and artists, people who don't have a lot of money for a lawyer. In art school, I really took advantage of that. We had seminars and stuff on law, and I just dug really deep into that because I wanted to know what people could do cheaply. So email things to yourself. If you're in any kind of legal spot with your art, state things in an email very clearly, because emails can be taken as proof. It's soft proof, but it's still something that can be admissible in court. So as far as having work stolen, this is a different story. I think I'll share that maybe sometime, but this is something to think about. But I would also say that you're probably thinking about it more than other people are, because stealing work takes effort, and most people are lazy. Like, I know that sounds corny, but, you know, I think I've been too paranoid about it. Even though I have actually had an incident or two with this, I've also been really paranoid. So don't let that paralyze you, you know? Because it's paralyzed me before. And if you really need to copyright something before you send it out, copyright it. Oh man, I really gotta go. My battery's gonna get all nuts. Anyhow, thanks so much for tuning in. This has been great. And, oh yeah, no problem. Welcome. I feel ya, Katura. I feel ya. Well, thanks, Katura. Thank you for sharing all your struggles with everybody, because I'm sure that other people have experienced that. And keep moving forward. Remember, just because something has been a certain way in the past doesn't mean it will be like that again. And I really appreciate all your feedback, seriously. I do have to go. Thanks, everyone. I hope that's been useful. Got some tips on law, email, how to regard feedback, coherence. And thanks for listening to my stories and my experience as a writer. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you prefer videos or live stream, and any other questions you have. And I think that's all for today. Alrighty. Thank you, my friends. It's all connected.